ecosystems are witnessing an unprecedented transformation ushered by emerging technologies. Additionally, artificial intelligence is undoubtedly revolutionizing all aspects of our social and economic sectors, with the media industry being no exception. Artificial intelligence has reshaped information gathering, analysis, production, and dissemination.
Okay, let's talk about navigating the sheer volume of information hitting us these days. I mean, it feels like we're all just trying to stay afloat in this digital ocean of content, right?
It really does. Yeah. And emerging technology, especially AI, is dramatically changing that current.
Yeah, it's revolutionizing how we gather, process, share information, makes everything faster, more interactive.
And the reach is just incredible.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into some source material about how one country is specifically addressing this transformation, Zimbabwe. Our source is a transcript from a speech given by ED, that's the country's leader launching their new national media policy.
Right, and what's really key to understanding this source, I think, is how it frames those global challenges. Accuracy, ethics, information overload, things we all see with this tech shift. But while those are universal, this speech explicitly connects these developments to potential challenges against, well, national sovereignty and democracy.
And specifically highlighting concerns for places like the Global South, Africa, and Zimbabwe itself.
Exactly. That's the context they're setting.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the core goals, the guiding principles, and the specific steps outlined in this speech. We want to distill what this policy, according to this source, is truly setting out to achieve for you.
Sounds good.
Jumping right in then, the speech emphasizes this. Well, unprecedented transformation happening in media ecosystems, all driven by emerging tech.
Yeah, and it really calls out AI as a revolutionary force, affecting every single stage, getting information, analyzing it, producing content, getting it out there, the whole chain.
It's interesting how quickly the source then moves to the challenges, isn't it?
Right away, it identifies those familiar issues, accuracy, ethics, information overload. But like we mentioned, the critical concern it highlights is how these very developments could pose a challenge to national sovereignty and democracy.
And focusing that worry specifically on regions like the Global South, Africa, and Zimbabwe.
Precisely. It frames this not just as a media problem, but potentially, a geopolitical one.
Right. So against that backdrop, the speech introduces the core stated purpose of this new policy. What is it?
Well, it's stated as strengthening and guaranteeing citizens' access to information.
But not just any information.
No, the source is very specific. It stresses it must be factual, verified, accurate, and reliable.
And it directly links this reliable information access to accelerating national development.
It does. There's a clear philosophy articulated there, too, that information needs to be deployed, and this is a direct quote, in the context of the unique, rich history, culture, and vision of our beloved motherland, Zimbabwe.
So anchoring information within a specific national identity.
Exactly. And the policy's ambition on this front is quite explicit. It talks about ensuring protection against, let me find the phrase, significant ever-looming threats to facts, ethics, diversity, and cultural plurality by the global tech infrastructure.
Wow, so seeing global tech not just as a tool, but potentially as a threat to local values and, well, truth itself.
That seems to be the framing in this speech, yes.
Okay, so how does this policy framework actually plan to, tackle these challenges? The speech outlines some key areas for regulation.
It does. It focuses on enhancing regulatory efforts, addressing content and platform accountability, and also actively supporting Zimbabwe's own independent content ecosystem.
And what specific issues does it say the regulation will target?
Well, the framework described aims to get a handle on several things prevalent in the digital space. The source lists market dominance by big platforms, privacy concerns, the spread of misinformation and disinformation, and protecting user rights. These are central issues it intends to address.
Right. And interestingly, the speech shifts from just regulation to its potential economic impact. It talks about anticipating ripple benefits from regulating big tech services.
And the speech details what those ripple benefits might look like. It mentions things like ensuring taxation and fair payment from, quote, all media players.
All players, so including global tech companies operating there.
That seems to be the implication. It mentions digital taxes and fair revenue sharing models. The idea, it seems, is for these entities to contribute directly to local economies and financially support local content creators.
Okay, I see. The source also highlights protecting users from what it calls exploitative practices.
Yes, and promoting digital literacy. Basically, teaching people the skills they need to navigate online spaces safely and critically.
Now, this next bit about the media's defined role is particularly striking. The speech positions both public and private media as, get this, strategic says towards achieving our national development aspirations and Vision 2030.
That's quite a statement. And it uses very evocative language, too, calling the sector the symbolic eye and the mirror of society, providing an honest and grounded reflection of our realities.
So with that level of importance assigned, the responsibilities outlined must be pretty significant.
They are. The media is tasked with informing, scrutinizing, and influencing socioeconomic developments. It's called upon to be vigilant and, as the source puts it, foster an informed, engaged, constitutional, and democratic Zimbabwe.
So it's framed almost as a direct partner in nation building.
Very much so.
And the speech offers a direct critique too, doesn't it? Of what it calls past trends, where media practitioners competed for prominency on the degree to which they demonized our country.
Yes, and it states unequivocally that this has no place in Zimbabwe.
Following that critique, the challenge laid out to the media seems pretty clear.
It is. To scale up our own ongoing quest to shape a positive image about our beloved motherland, Zimbabwe. The speech describes the media's expected role in mobilizing resources, fostering innovation, creating an environment attractive to investors.
And actively advancing the country towards an upper middle income economy.
Exactly. It's about using media power very deliberately for national promotion.
And it seems the expectation isn't just on media professionals.
No, citizens are also urged, according to the source, to use media platforms to accelerate progress and galvanize the nation towards production, productivity, and inclusive growth. It's presented as a kind of collective effort using these tools.
And there's that very strong concluding statement on this theme.
Right. The source says that under this leadership, media is expected to remain a cornerstone for promoting unity, peace, social cohesion, harmony, and the love for our country. Anything besides this.
Leaving a pretty clear implication about consequences for, well, deviating from that role.
That's certainly how it reads.
So how does the policy propose balancing these quite defined responsibilities with fundamental rights like freedom of expression?
Well, the speech does acknowledge the need for an intricate balance between freedom of expression and the need for content and the platform accountability.
Okay, but how is that accountability framed?
The source ties it directly to national values, things like value systems, dignity, integrity. It says these must guide ethical journalism.
And there's a quote in there too.
Yes, a powerful one emphasizing authenticity. We must write to show we are ourselves, never to please those who are not ourselves.
And the speech doesn't shy away from spelling out consequences, does it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It states quite clearly that the law and justice system will address those who produce, quote, content that harms our country and the fellow citizens, or infringe on others' rights using media platforms.
Right. So building on this framework, this balance, what specific steps does the source mention are actually being taken? It talks about programs to consolidate the gains of democratizing the media space.
Yeah, it provides some concrete examples. It highlights licensing 14 community radio stations.
Okay.
And it notes their role in revitalizing indigenous languages and cultures, sharing traditional knowledge, fostering community participation. It also mentions support for capacity building for them.
What else? Any modernization efforts?
Yes, the speech mentions modernizing Zim papers. That's the National Newspaper Group for Digital Competitiveness and Faster News Delivery, and also digitalizing the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Cooperation, the ZBC studios.
And there was something about content creation hubs.
That's right. The source points to funds being allocated to develop these hubs. The stated aim is to empower creatives, help them produce diverse, high-quality content, and foster what's described as a competitive local media industry.
Okay, this next part really brings the policy's vision on narrative control into sharp focus, I think. The speech declares Zimbabweans are the custodians of our own stories and narratives, and it states that for far too long our narrative has been deconstructed, distorted, and misrepresented.
And the implementation of this policy is explicitly framed as the chance to reclaim and correct this anomaly. The stated goal is presenting a truthful, coherent, and a positive story of Zimbabwe.
Why? What's the stated purpose of correcting the narrative?
According to this source, it's to consolidate national peace and unity and accelerate development. It's really about managing external perceptions and internal cohesion.
And the speech actually describes the elements of this desired authentic story, doesn't it?
It does. It's presented as a narrative of hard work, resilience, specifically mentioning challenges like what are termed illegal sanctions and climate change.
Okay.
It highlights the victory for independence and sovereignty and talks about the need to expose and shame detractors. The core message seems to be about being masters of our own destiny.
And the media's role in telling this story.
They're specifically challenged to actively influence Zimbabwe's national brand and strategic image to reflect these characteristics.
So using media as a tool for national branding internationally.
Seems so. Advancing national interests, showcasing natural and cultural treasures to attract investment, tourism, it's all tied together in the source.
And the call is to use modern tech digital platforms to do this effectively.
Yes, to craft appealing messages and imagery. That's explicitly mentioned.
Okay, so we've really dug into this transcript launching Zimbabwe's new national media policy. We've unpacked how it views technological change, its focus on regulation, the expected economic benefits,
The very specific strategic role defined for media in national development.
the concrete government initiatives being pursued, and that really strong emphasis on reclaiming and shaping the national narrative, all based on this one source, this speech.
And as the speech concludes, the overall message seems clear. A responsible, modern, and accountable media is vital for Zimbabwe's constitutional democracy, national building, and development.
Calling the policy itself a bold decision towards that vision.
Exactly.
So reflecting on everything we've pulled just from this specific source, here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. The policy, as outlined by ED in this speech, presents a media landscape deeply integrated with national development goals. It's actively aimed at cultivating a very specific national image.
And it talks about carefully balancing freedom of expression with accountability.
Even mentioning legal consequences for content deemed harmful to the country or its citizens. So the question to mull over might be, what does this particular framework, as described here, suggest about the evolving relationship between the state, technology, and media expression in a country like Zimbabwe, especially when the state is defining both the media's strategic role and the parameters of acceptable content?